Welcome to the Joe Kilgallon podcast, aka Kilgallon's Pup. What is up, everybody? It is almost sounds like I said aka Kilgallon's Pup. It's Kilgallon's Pub, everyone. The podcast where I, Joe Kilgallon, like to sit back and drink with people and just shoot the shit, have the conversations you'd have at the bar with your friends. That's what this podcast is all about. But as always, I like to start off the podcast by thanking you, the listeners. Can't do it without you, especially my Patreon subscribers. You guys are amazing. All of you guys are fantastic. I just posted some new stuff. A new bonus episode of the podcast is on the Patreon right now. I've got stand-up comedian Mike Bridenstine, who's been on Comedy Central and the Eric Andre Show. We talk food. We talk baseball movies. It was a fun one. If you're not on the Patreon, get on that shit. Top tier. You get a producer credit on all YouTube podcast clips. How do you like that? I'm going to start off this with, though, a little public service announcement. If you're watching on YouTube, by the way, my eyes are all bloodshot because I've had a long-ass day and barely slept. Just giving you that heads up. But here's what I'm going to be doing from now on. I've decided enough's enough. You guys have known, if everyone who's been following this podcast know, I have a really weird love-hate relationship with Twitter in particular. And the internet as a whole, I'm cool with. Twitter, Facebook, those two I really can't stand. But I'm no longer going to sit back and witness people talking shit about people I like and just not say anything. You know, there was a time in my life where if I saw someone shit on a friend of mine, I remember my boy Dave Bolin was, when he was with the Blackhawks, some fans shitting on him from Vancouver. I got right up in them. I got right up in those mentions and said, hey, listen, fuck faces. You don't talk shit about my boy. You know, I had that kind of fierce loyalty. Dudes shitting on like female comedian friends of mine, being like, you're not funny. I'd be like, you're not funny. You know what's funny? Your stupid fucking face after I put my freaking awesome Reebok Classics up in your gullet. That's funny, you know? But I've since matured. I've stopped doing things like that because you really can't win overall. These people are psychos. If you have the time of day to just openly shit on someone, and sometimes it's not shitting. Sometimes it's people who are just looking for a fight for whatever reason. They had these purity tests or whatever they're doing, and they're going after people. And a lot of times they're friends of mine, and I just think, and I message them going, fuck those people. And usually that's the best way to do it. But I'm sick of taking it lying down. I'm going to mix it up again because I don't care about Twitter. Don't give a shit about it. I don't care if people like, I'm going to unfollow you because of the way you were, or if it sucks. And luckily I'm in a profession where I'm not, obviously I'm not going to tweet horrible shit that might cost me a network gig one day. But if you're coming at someone with disrespect, I think I'm going to fuck with you a little bit. I think I miss doing that. Good old fashioned fucking with someone but they deserve it. I'm not some mean person. I'm not some troll. But I'll give you an example, everyone. If you're wondering why I'm starting off the podcast steaming hot about this issue. Buddy of mine, Ryan Dempster, is a pitcher for the Chicago Cubs. He's an all-star for the Chicago Cubs. And he now works for the team as a consultant. And he hosts a show on the Cubs network, which is called the Marquee Sports Network, called Off the Mound with Ryan Dullen. I have a friend named Ryan Dullen. I told you guys I'm tired. I didn't sleep much. Off the Mound with Ryan Dempster. Now, Dempster is an awesome dude. He's Canadian. All Canadians are awesome dudes. That's just part of the DNA up there, I think. It's too cold to be a dick, maybe. I don't know. But although I take that back because I'm from Chicago and it's very cold here too. And we could be dickish, right? But he's a great dude. Gives back to the community, runs charity. Great dad, great teammate, great friend. Like, he's just an awesome guy. He'd give you the shirt off his back, that type of dude. And he handles this with way more class than I do. He makes a post about a big announcement he's got coming up, which I don't even know what it is. I'm excited. I think it's something to do with a bar. It looks like Goose Island might be doing a cool little beer thing. I don't know. I don't want to speculate. But he makes, an announcement about, hey, big news coming. And someone comments about past pitching performances in playoff games. And it's just like real shitty, like going after his playing career. And he handled it by being like, just like, cool, man. That's a good one. Like, very like, oh yeah, I pitched bad in that game. Like, he kind of like owned it because he's smarter than me. He knows it's not worth your time. And I was talking to another dude today, and he's like, you don't know what these people are going through. And I like to think that, yeah, they got a shit life, But then sometimes I'm just like, you know what? Fuck these people. Maybe they're doing it over and over again because everyone has just written them off. Maybe a little attention is what they need. Maybe I'll go at them and say, hey, fuckhead, at least he pitched in the major leagues. What are you doing, huh? What are you, the backup catcher on your 16-inch softball team, you loser? You piece of shit. You don't even have your own picture in your profile. Is that because you're so ugly? Is that what it is? Maybe I come at him like that, and he's like, hey, and then we kind of go back and forth, and then I just finally stop, and I go, who hurt you? And then he says, I'll be honest with you, man. I had an abusive stepfather. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry to hear that. He's like, yeah, man. He wanted me to make the show. He wanted me to be a big leaguer, and I failed. And so now I get mad at other big leaguers on Twitter. And I'm like, well, let's talk about that, man. And he's like, all right, well. And then all of a sudden, he's healing. He's back on the mend. And it's all because I stepped in and told him, don't talk shit about my friends. Fuckhead. Fuckhead's one of my favorites, by the way. I'm bringing back Fuckhead. So not that Fuckhead went anywhere. Did it go anywhere? I don't think it did. So that's just a fair warning. And maybe if you need help, anyone listening, if someone comes in your mentions, someone starts adding you, as they say, and they're talking trash, you tap me on the virtual shoulder, because don't actually touch me. This pandemic's still going on. I only got my first shot, and you're not near me. So again, don't touch me. I'll step in. I'll swoop in and be like, dipshit says what? And then they say what? And then I go, so you're admitting you're a dipshit? Got you. I got you. And I got you, the listener. So again, if you need the help, hit me up and we'll take care of some stuff. As you notice, I am rocking a solo podcast today. I did do a bonus episode with Mike Bridenstine, last week's episode with Joe Fernandez. You could catch up on that. And the sound quality, again, I apologize for the 3-year anniversary episode, which we did live at the pub at Galway Bay Pub, 500 West Diversey in Chicago, Illinois. If you're ever in town, you got to check out that bar. It's a one-of-a-kind place. It's got a pool table. It's got Nintendo. It's the best. Tell them Joe Kilgallon sent you. I don't know if they'll get you a drink, but just say it. It might be cool. They'll text me going, hey, someone said you sent them? You know anything about this? I go, yeah, be nice to them, right? So, I don't have a guest this week. I'll be back to having guests regularly next week. A lot going on because I am launching a Cubs podcast. As you guys know, that's my other passion, is the sport of baseball, my Chicago Cubs in particular. That's when I met Ryan Dempster. We're talking about that a little bit earlier. So I did some work for that, and the baseball's opening day is tomorrow. You're listening to this on a Wednesday. It's Thursday, April 1st. And do you guys do April Fools? I just thought about that with April 1st. April Fools is like, I think you get away with it in grade school, but once you get to a certain age, people go over the top with it. They usually make a post. Someone will make a post where it's like, we're having a baby. And then you're like, are they really having a fucking baby? And then sometimes they do where it's like, no, just kidding. It's like, well, you've been married for 5 years, so that's not even a good April Fool's. You ever have that where someone does like, I'm just fucking with you. And you're like, that's not a good, I'm just fucking with you. Because what you just said is incredibly believable. I got a story for you guys. I'm going to take it back to, this would have been the summer of 2001. No, not the summer. No, the fall of 2000, because it was football season. Now, we were coming back from a game. I played on the sophomore team. I broke my leg that I was out for the season. So at this point, I'm rocking a big cast, and I got crutches, And, we'd go to the games as a team on the bus, but if your parents went to the games, they would let you drive back. Now, my parents weren't at the game because, again, I had a broken leg. Why would they go to the game? To watch their son just stand there? You know what the cool thing I did with the broken leg, being that guy on the sidelines? When we scored a touchdown, I took both crutches and I put them in the air, like, to signal touchdown. People thought that was kind of cool. But I got a ride with my boy, my buddy. Should I say his name? I don't know. Just say my friend Mike. Now, my friend Mike, his parents were amazing people. I run into them every now and then. But the dad is, I don't know what the term is, like legally. You're not supposed to say, I'm just going to say it, but know that I know you're not supposed to midget. I don't think that's the term people say anymore. He's legally, I don't know. He's not like super short, but I think he's like 4'10", 4'8". I don't know. He's really small, right? He's not like Vern Troyer. He's not like Mini-Me in the Austin Powers movies, but he's in 4'8", 4'10" or something like that. And his sons are both well over, one's like 6'1", the other's like 6'4", I think. So Mother Nature, right? And great guy, so funny. This is the first time I met him. So first time I'm meeting this man, I have the broken leg. He then says to me, hey, Joe, I once broke every growth plate in my body. And in my head, I'm like, oh shit, well, that's why you're 4'8". I didn't say that out loud, but in my brain, I'm like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. That explains that then, I guess, huh? He then says, hey, Joe, are you hungry? And I go, no, I'm good. He goes, well, that's good because I just fed you a bunch of bullshit. And I'm like, the fuck? Like, what you just said was incredibly believable, though. That's not a gotcha. That's not me being gullible. Like if I met someone who was missing an arm and they were like, you see this? Iraq. And I'm like, dude, that sucks. It's like, just kidding. Wood chipper. This guy's an idiot. I'd be like, no, you're a fucking idiot. You lost your arm in a wood chipper. Don't give me the hard time, Why am I getting a fucking thing that says my connection's unstable when I'm plugged into the Ethernet? I don't fucking know what's happening. I've been having, that was another thing all this past week, everyone, some technological issues. I bought an Ethernet thing that way I could go right from my laptop into the internet, but it's going into a Wi-Fi extender. My wife and I are cleaning out one whole different section of the basement so I could kind of build an office over there. Because right now I'm just along a wall in my basement and I have to set up and take it down every day because I don't want my 4-year-old and almost 2-year-old son knocking my shit about. So that's just a little side note there for you. Anyway, though, that's a weird way to fuck with someone. As I was saying before my internet said it was getting a little lagged. It's just a weird little like, So that's why I was wondering, like, dude, April Fools, I just see, whenever I see it, because on April 1st, you're going to see some weird thing on Facebook or Twitter. And at first you're going to be like, what's the date? April 1st. That's why I kind of think like April Fools is for kids. Aren't most holidays for kids? Easter's coming up, painting eggs, egg hunts. Putting shit in plastic eggs, chocolate bunnies. Is there anything more overrated than chocolate bunny? It's too much chocolate. I remember getting a chocolate bunny as a kid, even when I was like an obsessive, I love candy type of kid. You get halfway through the freaking neck, right? You start with the ears. You got to start with the ears, right? You start with the feet and leave the head last. I don't know. That just seems weird. Plus, you're eating bunny crotch at that point. No. You start with the ears, you work your way down, but by the time you're working bunny collarbone, you're like, this is just an insane amount of chocolate. I was never a Cadbury egg guy. I don't know. The commercials were cool as a kid, though, because it was like a bunny acting like different things, I think. I do like the Reese's peanut butter cup eggs because they're just Reese's peanut butter cups in the shape of an egg. It's fun. I like that. They do that around Christmas time with different stuff, like one's a candy cane or something like that. So I appreciate that. But Easter, I don't know. It's not just, I know as a Catholic, it should be one of the, like, it's a big one. Jesus was like, I'm back, Some people were probably like, I didn't even really, where did he go? He went somewhere? Yeah, on Friday, dude. You don't remember this on Friday? They fucking crucified him on Friday. Where were you? It's like, well, dude, Jesus he stopped doing the carpentry work, right? We only had 2 carpenters in this town. Jesus was one of them. All of a sudden, he's running off, Pontius Pilate's yelling at him. I don't know. I got a lot of work. I got a lot of phone calls for carpentry. And so I just start, hammering some nails, man. And then now you're telling me that's what happened to him? He got hammered nail. Like, how come no one ever points that out? Jesus was a carpenter. These people work with nails and wood. And he got nailed to a piece of wood that looked like the letter T, a cross, if you will. Did they do that on purpose? Is that how they did it back then? What your profession was how you die? A lot of prostitutes back then. How did they kill them? How did they crucify a prostitute? I don't even want to think about it. It seems like it could be really, really gross. So, yeah. Fishermen, did they just go, like, we're going to throw you in with a bunch of piranhas? Were they able to get piranhas? Were piranhas available? Readily available? Whatever the closest sea was in the Mideast at the time? I don't know. It just seems like I guarantee you, as they were putting those nails through Jesus, he was thinking, the fucking irony. I know he was very much like, I'm dying for your sins. And he looked up and he said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they have done. Great man right there. Again, handled things better than I would have in that situation. Because if it was me, I'd have been like, fuck this shit. I'd have been like, Dad, smite these motherfuckers. You know what I mean? Do the Thor lightning bolts. And then I come out of it. That's what I would have done. That's why I'm not the Messiah. That and that alone is why I am not the chosen one. So now you know. Now you know. But yeah, most holidays, I think the point was, are for children. That's why the adult ones that you could enjoy as an adult. Christmas, if you're a parent, is very enjoyable to see the looks on your children's faces as they get the present they always wanted, and then they thank a guy who didn't buy it for them, Santa. Halloween can be fun as an adult. as kids, it's, as a parent, again, you dress them up. That's kind of fun. We did a whole Avengers theme last year, which is great. And then you go out at night and the women are like, what's up? Here's my ass. And I'm like, what's up, girl? That's a nice ass. I'm married, but I could look, and then they're like, oh, well, it's true. You could, because it'd be weird if I was like, don't look at my ass when I'm dressed this way. And I'm like, yeah, no, respect though. Hey, respect. I wouldn't do it normally, but it's Halloween. And then what other? St. Patrick's Day. That's why St. Patrick's Day is awesome, because it's an adult holiday. No children involved. Every now and then you meet someone who's like, oh, well, my family, we had a dinner, and then not doing that. And my kids will understand. They're like, look, you get daddy for all the other holidays, but St. Patrick's Day, I'm getting up early, and I'm going to get into some stupid things. Not like dangerous, but I'm going to start drinking and being loud as soon as I can. Very early. And I'm wearing green, which I know, as you guys can tell, I'm wearing blue right now if you're watching it on YouTube. Makes the eyes pop. Green dulls them slightly. Still, though, I look like a fine morning along the Irish Sea, just as the dew comes up on the horizon. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. I was trying to be poetic. A lot of Irish people are poetic. Not me. I think that's the American. It got lost on the travels across the Atlantic from my ancestors. And I have a way with words, I feel like. If you've been listening to this podcast, I could twist a phrase every so often. So yeah, on the holiday front, here's something interesting, right? This I want to talk about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier first. No, we'll wait. We'll wait on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'll get to that in a second. I want to talk about this dude. I want you guys to look up Representative, U.S. House of Representatives, Matt Gaetz, I believe is how you pronounce it, Gaetz, is now being investigated for sexual relationship with a teen. And if you look at him, if you look at the picture of this guy, he looks exactly like someone who would have a sexual relation with a teen and be real scummy about it. I hope that video doesn't play. I just clicked on something to get a better look at the report. It was a 17-year-old girl, which in Florida is very believable. For some reason, no disrespect to Florida, I got family down there, but of all the states, you're kind of like, it seems skeezy enough, right? So the Attorney General, William Barr, the investigation started in the final months of the Trump administration, which is interesting because Gaetz is a Republican. So tip of the hat to William Barr, who I didn't respect for other things, but I do respect with this. It says the agency is looking into whether Gaetz, a close ally of the former president, violated again, he was an ally of the president, federal sex trafficking laws by paying for the young women to travel with him outside of Florida. Can't be taking 17-year-olds across state lines. Because I'm not even sure. Maybe 17 is the age of consent. It might be legal for him to be banging 17-year-olds in Florida. Every state's different. So it says early Tuesday, it was reported Gaetz, who was 38, young, but this is definitely going to screw up his greater ambitions, told associates he was considering not seeking re-election so that he could pursue a job opportunity with the staunchly conservative network Newsmax. That's a big thing this side of the aisle does. I try to have respect, right? But there's some things where it's like, I don't see this on the Democrat. Actually, no, I'm lying because no, a lot of them do work. Cuomo's probably going to get a job in New York. Which, by the way, screw Andrew Cuomo. Okay? Cuomo. He's skeezy as hell, too. And let's go back to hating politicians. I'll give you a little sneak peek into the bonus Patreon episode of the podcast, the latest one that was just posted today, patreon.com/Joe Kilgallon. I was talking about comedian Mike Bridenstine about could we all of us, that could be the one thing that could possibly make America more united, that and actually treating each other way, way, way better, with respect equally and having some kind of real consistent justice. But could we go back to treating politicians with screw them all? I remember there was a brief time in my life, I think it was coming up around the 96 election. I was very young, but I remember just being like, oh, everyone hates politicians. That's what it is. People just think they're all scumbags. You know what I mean? It definitely feels like we need to remind ourselves, these people work for us. But they don't. They get into the office and they immediately become corporate shills. They do whoever pays them. Because the taxpayers are only paying, I think a congressman makes $200,000 a year or something like that, which is a great living. But they all go, oh, I could get a couple million from them, a couple million from that. And then that's why we all hate them. But we need to go back to that. Let's stop being fans. Even the ones that are doing good jobs, there's no need to be fans of these people. I say that as someone who had like a Kennedy poster framed, and if they, I'm not saying maybe it sounds like I'm backtracking a little bit. It's not a sports team. They're not a band. They're not an actor or actress. They're not providing you entertainment. I feel like you should be fans of entertainment. You could have respect, have a great deal of respect, right? There's been great politicians in history where it's like, I respect them and they earn the respect. And if they've had an impact, yes, when they're retired, throw a frame picture on the wall. If you've met them even, frame picture on the wall. All right, fine. But this weirdo, like, we're going to wave flags and have hats and posters and they're my spirit animal and all this other weirdo shit. It's enough, because it never surprises me, you know? So yeah, he's in early retirement for a gig with Newsmax, which is trying to out Fox News. That's essentially what they're doing, in case you don't know what Newsmax is. They all do this thing where it's like, we're the more honest political network. And they'll use examples of Fox being legitly fair and balanced, which has always never been used correctly by them. But there's been times where it's like, oh, look, Shepard Smith was reasonable about a subject. And then they go, you see this? They're not putting America first. And it's like, well, what does that have to do with anything? You know, there are times where I'm like, yeah, politicians should really put the American people before some other stuff. And then there are times where it has nothing to do with anything. And they go, he's not putting America first. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's an oil spill off the coast of something. They're trying to figure out, well, what does that like have to, you know, it's always someone that's like, I'm poor and yet they're taking care of these. Like, what does one have to, not everything correlates to you and your shitty life per people who are upset. I don't know who I'm talking to right now, because most of my listeners, I feel like are pretty damn cool people who don't blame like anything that's going on in their life on others. Whether you're left or right, which, you know, again, this is not a political podcast at all, but this guy I've seen post enough stuff where he was shitty. So that's why I'm like, you know what? Let's blast this loser, right? Gates told the Times that while his lawyers have been in contact with the Justice Department, he has been told he is not a target of an investigation. I only know that it has to do with women, Gates told the paper. I have a suspicion that someone is trying to recategorize my generosity to ex-girlfriends as something more untoward. Dude, you're banging teens, okay? He goes, I have definitely in my single days provided women I've dated. Gates added, you know, I paid for flights for hotel rooms. I've been, you know, generous as a partner. I'm quoting him now. I think someone is trying to make that look criminal when it's not. We'll see how it goes. But I think the main reason I wanted to share the story is because I wanted you guys to look him up, especially if you go to yahoonews.com. The picture they show of him, he's just got this really orange wannabe tan. He's even combing his hair like a young Trump family member. You know, he's just one of those dudes that you could just tell is like fucking kiss ass. And a guy that's probably like been at some banquet and he's cornering the coat check girl, you know, just like in a real scumbaggish way. There's so many people who look the part. It's like that, right? You watch the local news and, you know, I have a joke about this. It's on my last hour, everybody. If you're watching this on YouTube, go click over that. Can't remember the name of the joke it's on. I think it's on, what the hell's that joke called? Mass shooters. It's on the mass shooters joke. And there's a line in it about how whenever you watch the local news and they go, suburban high school janitor turns out to be child molester, they show his picture and you're like, yeah, definitely. It feels this way. Whenever there's a congressman who's banging a teen, they show his picture and you're like, you look like that guy. It's almost never they don't. Does the crime make the person look more like it? I wonder. Because I don't think that's true. I think we've all been in a situation where we've all been out in public. Maybe you're on a city bus and you look across and you're like, I would not let that dude sit anywhere near me or someone I care about. All been there. My back is fucking killing me right now. I'm going to lean back a little bit, everybody. Hopefully I didn't move the mic into a spot in which did sound well for y'all. Wouldn't want that to happen. I did some shows. Comedy is back. It's not back 100%. They've got, you know, capacity restrictions still, but I did my first shows outside the city on Saturday night. Before I get to that, I got to give shout outs to Dario Dunham. Is it Durham or Dunham? Sorry, buddy. I'm blanking on your name. I don't have it in front of me. He's running a couple kick-ass shows right now, but I did the one at Zany's Comedy Club. That was Wednesday. Shout out to Brian Morton as well. He booked me on the Late Show Saturday night. So that was kind of a fun Saturday for me. And also Curtis Shaw Flag at the Laugh Factory. Laugh Factory's, God, there's so many great spots in Chicago comedy right now. If you're coming through the city, please check out stand-up comedy in Chicago. All the shows were fun. Literally, I really mean that. Every one of them was fun. Saturday night, I did 2 shows out in, thanks to my guy, Joe, super Italian last name. And he listens to this podcast too. He's going to be so pissed at me that I can't pronounce his last name. Dude, I can't. I'm having one of those days. I'm blanking on your name, pal. I'm sorry. I love you to death, dude. I'll shout you out. I'll tag you in the description if I can remember. I will. It's really late. It's almost midnight on a Wednesday, so I'm exhausted. No excuse, guys. I got to be entertaining, right? That's what podcasts are about. He runs 2 great shows now. They did 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock at this wine shop. It's called The Bottle Shop in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, which is just about an hour, 15 minutes north of Chicago. Not too far from Milwaukee, I imagine, because of that. And the crowds were great. They were great. The other comedians were great. The venue was cool. I had some chatter with the crowd, but it all worked in my favor. Because sometimes these crowds, look, I think a lot of times they're new to a comedy show. They're just getting back out there too. And maybe I think there's been stories from other comedians where it's like this audience did not know how to act. And I think we're going to see a lot of amateurish stuff at bars and restaurants and concerts and comedy shows and sporting events, because a lot of people are cooped up and now they're back into the world, being re-released into the wild, and they're not going to know how to behave. And so there was one woman who was really chatty, and I remember a couple of the other comedians were like, "This woman, she's chatty." And I went out there, and she, of course, started to talk. And I go, "You know what? They warned me about you." And I asked, I go, "Well, where is she in the crowd?" And they're like, "Oh, you'll find her." And there you are. Of course, there you are. And even before he said anything, I remember thinking, that's you. If we're playing a game of Guess Who, I'm telling everyone else to go down. You'd be the only person up. I would know that quickly. It's you. Then I settled her down. And what was cool about this crowd, and both shows had some chatty people, is once they realized I knew what the fuck I was doing and that I was able to turn it around on them and do it very quickly and humorously, if I could pat myself on the back, and I will, then they fell in line, and they were great. They were a great crowd. And then every now and then there's a funny response, and you got to give it up for those people. As a comedian, sometimes there's no need to have the last word or make sure you're the funniest. If someone gets a good line out of the crowd, I have no problem with just being like, smiling at the audience, being like, "That's a good one. Hey man, nice." Unless they're trying to like make me look bad. And then it's on. Then it's war. But this dude had a funny retort. I was talking about the year 2020, where everyone hates that year and it's a terrible year. But somewhere out there, someone had a great 2020 and they feel bad about it. And I talk about like a scenario in which there's some guy out there who, maybe some schlub who just never was able to figure it out with women, some gangly looking guy with just glasses and a weird haircut. And I don't know. There's nothing wrong with anything I'm saying, but you guys get it, right? I just realized I might be describing someone listening. I'm not that I could think of. I'm thinking of like a Revenge of the Nerds type of thing. One of those dudes that he finally in 2020 got him some. He got his dick sucked for the first time in the year 2020. And yet he can't celebrate it because it was such a bad year for everyone else. I feel for that guy. And as I'm telling the joke, the audience is laughing, but there's a row where they were like kind of nudging or they point at the one guy. And so I'm like, "Oh, you had a good 2020? What happened to you in 2020? And he said, "Oh, I got to come in her mouth," which was a line I said. I go, the guy's thinking to himself, "Yeah, sure, 500,000 people died, but I got to come in someone's mouth for the first time." And so then I said, "What'd you do?" And he was like, "I got to come in her mouth." And he pointed right to the woman next to him. And to her credit, she didn't like smack him or hit him. She laughed. And it made me think, is that really what it was? And, they're messing around a little bit. And I investigate further because you see they're cool. That's what you got to do. So he had that line where he's like, "Yeah, I got to come in her mouth." He did a callback to one of my jokes. Right away, I respect him because he's listening. So I'm like, all right, this guy's great. And he had good timing. He responded without hesitation to it as a callback to one of my lines. And he was funny. The crowd laughed. They were already laughing at my joke. There's no competition here. I want everyone to have a good time. That's how I view it. That's why I always think like I'd be a great writer on a sitcom or something like that, or just a writer on any TV show. Because I always hear stories about writers being like, "Oh, the actor changed and the writer got mad," or they improv and the writer, these writers, they're so married to every word. I'm like, I wouldn't care. Did they make it funnier? Right? That's what we're about. Everyone have a good time. Who cares if someone tweaked it to make it better? Drop the ego. More and more people need to think about that. You got to drop the ego, everyone. So I then investigate further. I'm talking to them, and I discover they're married, right? They look a real cute couple, early 30s, maybe I'm guessing, maybe late 20s. It's tough to tell. They look like they were hard drinkers, that ages you a bit. And I was like, any kids? They go, no, we're trying. And then I go, well, you're coming in the wrong spot. And that got a big response. And I'm like, because, he had said he was coming in her mouth. And I go, yeah, I don't know how tall she is, but you got to aim about 2 feet lower. And then they were fun. They were a cool crowd to talk to in that sense. Second show, I may have discovered a distant relative, perhaps. Who knows? There's this woman, there's a row of like 6 or 7 women. And they were, I hope they don't mind me saying this, but they were like in their 50s. Not all of them, but the couple, the main 2 who were talking. And I don't know, something got mentioned with me looking really Irish. And they were like, oh, she's Irish. And she's like, yeah, I'm from, she named the town she was born in because she was like born in Ireland, but she didn't have the accent. I guess she came over when she was like 7 or something like that. So it was long since gone, the lovely Irish accent. And I go, oh, well, what's your name? And then she said, Mary Nyland. And I'm like, spelled Niland. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, it's my grandmother's name. That's crazy, And then we were talking both from County Mayo, Ireland, and I didn't get to I didn't like those talking in the show. I didn't like hang out afterwards because I had to haul ass to Zanies to do the late show. See, that's what I miss. And that's what I'm happy to see coming back. I love that grind. There is nothing more satisfying to me as a stand-up comedian than doing multiple sets in one night, especially when you're starting to build. I got a couple new jokes that are getting momentum after, not doing much stand-up at all this last year and releasing an hour in 2020. I released the album and the special on YouTube called I Didn't Say Anything Bad. And then right when that was released, I started working on some new stuff, and then everything shut down forever. And it kind of gave me this hungry feeling of, yes, I could start building again. I mean, I don't know when I'm going to get a new hour, but I definitely have a new close to 10 minutes, almost 10 minutes that I'm like, this is some strong stuff. So I'm really excited to see where that's going. All right, I'm a little over 30 minutes now. I wanted to keep this tight as a solo podcast, just me. I didn't want to not release one on Wednesday. I wanted to stay consistent to releasing at least one a week every Wednesday. There still is talks of me doing 2 a week. And if I get this office built, it'll be so much easier for me on my life. I'll just be honest with you guys. It was the second wave was hard in a lot of ways, just mentally, not being able to have a lot of interaction with friends and things like that. And, my wife working on a COVID floor as a nurse, just, it was rough. And that's where, you guys who listen know, sometimes I'll say, oh, I'm going to have 2 out this week. And then you get 1. And I keep talking about wanting to do a schedule in which I pop on. Oh shit, something's almost falling on me over here. Where I pop on and do a solo one. Cause I like riffing like this. It's fun. It's cool to be able to just go off on a topic if something happens. So release 1 solo episode a week and 1 episode with a guest. I feel like that's really where I want to take this podcast. And I haven't stuck with that as much as I'd like to have. But if I could really, get some stuff set up where I have like this studio that's where I could just leave this set up. Because sometimes, the sound's inconsistent on this podcast and it's driving me nuts. And I'm like, yeah, because I have to take everything down and then I have to play with the levels and shit like that. If I could just have everything in one spot, not to touch it, or just sit my ass in the seat and speak, and then I could have some consistency. Because I feel like I had like 5 or 6 podcasts in a row where I was apologizing to you guys for the quality. And I'm like, this is just, it's getting tedious. And I'm sure people are just like, oh, let me guess, your fucking audio quality sucks again. And I love James Webb producing the podcast. I'm not with his network anymore, but I highly encourage everyone to keep checking out the People of Comedy Podcast Network. We didn't have a falling out or anything. We still talk all the time. But I'm a producer of Comedians You Should Know, and there was talks forever of doing a Comedians You Should Know network long before People of Comedy came around. And the Comedians You Should Know network is going to have access to a studio that's being built with Comedians You Should Know money, which I, of course, helped accumulate, as well as the Comedians You Should Know email list, which I, again, helped build. So it didn't make sense for me not to be with that network. But tons of love to the People of Comedy Podcast Network. And I'm sure we'll collaborate with them and do all sorts of work with them. The Comedians You Should Know Podcast Network is in no way competing with them. Also, there's an abundance out there. There is enough out there for everybody. And a rising tide lifts all boats, one of my favorite expressions. And to everyone out there, if I could just end with some positivity, my goal with the podcast is always fun. Let's have fun. Let's laugh. Let's share. Let's, have guests on to also talk about funny things or to bring you some value, whatever their story is. I like to share their story with you. That's the goal of this podcast, is always to have fun. I want this to be a fun thing that you guys listen to in your car while you're working out, shit that's going to make you laugh out loud. And some of the shit's going to make you think, or some of it's going to be like, hey, that's cool. That's interesting. Like when I talked about having the broken leg earlier, the guy, fucking 4'8" guy lying to me. I never had a fucking midget lie to me before. Why would I believe it then? As a 15-year-old, doesn't add up. How does it? All right, I just got canceled for saying the M word. I don't know what you'd say. Legal, how there's like legally blind. I remember someone saying at the time like he's legally, and I think they said midget, but I don't think you're allowed to say midget. I have to find that out. If this gets used to get me fired from something in the future, I apologize. I legitimately don't know the term. And if you are, did they say little people now is the term? But that sounds fucking more insulting to me. Because it's like, he's a little person. It's like, what the fuck does that mean? You know what I mean? You call me like small-minded? What are you saying? You saying I'm one of the little people? Like I'm beneath you? Like status-wise? Dude, I'll bite your fucking kneecaps off. That's what I would think. Right. Anyway. All right, everyone. That's been the Joe Kilgallon podcast. Check out the Patreon. You guys are the best, and have yourselves a good week. Cheers.